Hello, I'm now joined by Ed Boon, who's the co-creator of the Mortal Kombat series. Ed, it's great to have you here.
Great to be here, finally.
Awesome, yeah. We're down here in the basement talking about Mortal Kombat versus DC Universe.
Yep.
Now, you've been working on this game for a while now. It seems like it's nearing completion. What's left to do in the game right now?
You know what? Not much other than to show guys like you the game. We're all submitted into Sony and Microsoft.
Cool.
Just kind of waiting with bated breath and
Make sure that they don't find any weird last-minute bugs.
Yeah, but so far it's been very clean, and so we're looking for a November 16th shelf date.
Awesome. So
Yeah.
let's take it back to the beginning. Now this game, you started talking about the next Mortal Kombat, but well before you talked about DC's involvement.
Yeah.
At what point did the game transfer from like Mortal Kombat 8 to MK versus DC Universe?
You know what? Probably 6 months into it, we started, designing the Scorpion character, the Sub-Zero character. Those are always the first two we do.
Right.
But at the same time, we really felt that we needed to change everything up. Just change the fighting mechanic, change the presentation. With new systems and all that.
Right.
So we said we need change. We need as much change as we can. And so our marketing people came to us and said, what do you think of the idea of having Batman in the game? And Superman, and then and it wasn't really presented like DC characters, just Batman and Superman. And then we said, oh yeah, that'd be cool. And then we kind of realized that it was really the DC universe of characters that we had, and we had hesitation at first, and just like some people who've heard the news, were hesitant about it. And but then the more we explored it, and the more we saw kind of parallels with characters. Batman, the dark brooding guy, and that's Sub-Zero.
Right,
Raiden, the guy who can fly and all powerful, Superman and all that stuff. So we saw all these parallels. And we thought, it'll be big news if anything. And and so we decided to go for it, and it's really panned out nicely.
The Joker wins.
There's some stuff in this game that I'm surprised you can kind of get away with a T rating with some of this stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, there is blood in there. You do have finishing moves, and
Sure.
obviously you're not seeing spines and all this other stuff.
Right.
Did it kind of force you to rethink everything about Mortal Kombat in terms of just the creativity of what are we going to do with these finishing moves? What are we going to be able to come up with?
Yeah, it exactly did, because normally, we were looking for some amount of shock factor. Okay, well,
Right.
what do we do? Well, let's have the spine attached to the head and something like that.
Yeah.
But now we're thinking, well, what can we do that's within this box? And so it's kind of like, more of, big impact, big moments, magic moments, and as opposed to just blatantly gory moments. And when you think it's actually a whole new category of things, and we've done probably like 100 or 200 fatalities over the years.
Right.
So all of a sudden it actually opened a lot of a lot of doors to more creative stuff.
Cool. Now, in addition, you also pretty much revamped the entire fighting system yet again. Stepping away from kind of the stances and the weapons found in the previous few games.
Right.
What was your goal when you sat down to figure out how Mortal Kombat's going to play now? What was the one thing that you really wanted to make sure you got right?
Well, one goal was just to be different. I mean, not different as in worse, but different for the sake of a new experience. My thing was I want people to have a new experience. I want when they pick up the controller, I don't want them to feel like, oh, okay, I played this before, And
Right.
while I really was happy with the multiple fighting styles of the previous games, we did it 3 times, and I thought that it was, it's time to move on to something different. And so the team, when we talk, we always have ideas like, it'd be cool if we started doing this more, and our heads started gravitating more towards a 2D strategy. Pulling down on the joypad, ducks, before it would 3D walk,
Right.
Pushing up on it, jumps. Now, you
Yeah.
have the analog stick and you can still do that stuff, but in terms of the moment-to-moment kind of fighting strategy things, we really were leaning towards a 2D thing, and that's where we just kind of gravitated towards, and that's kind of the feel of the game.
So it's more about jumping over or ducking under projectiles as opposed
Exactly.
to just taking that one step that nullifies the whole
Yeah,
thing.
exactly,
Right.
and ducking under a punch and uppercutting right afterwards,
Yeah.
And that whole kind of basic strategy. We still have the 3D movement, so you can still position yourself for the transitions and the free fall combat and all that, but it's the main moment-to-moment events are 2D oriented.
Let's actually talk about free fall combat, close combat. how did these come into play? Test your might, being able to run through walls and kind of pound on the buttons. Like they seem to break up the action. Is that deliberate?
Yeah, it's actually it's very deliberate. You know, we've always felt that, like, you know, it's great to have all this exchange back and forth with players and stuff, but the pacing of it, we wanted interruptions into the fighting, and so, you know, you have this kind of close combat. I always kind of describe close combat as an interactive throw. You know, it has the same rules of a throw where you reaching out, you know, it goes through a block, but an attack will beat it. But once you get the guy, the amount of damage you're going to do is going to be determined by this little mini game. So if I can get you with the maximum 3 or 4 hits, then it's kind of like a full throw. If you kind of dodge the first one, then it's no damage. As a matter of fact, I take a little bit of damage. So there's a little risk because the rewards are really huge.
Cool.
There's a risk to doing it. And so it adds another layer of strategy to the game. The same with free fall combat, you know, same kind of strategy where it's almost like a gambling thing. You know, you go, I got you with 3 or 4 hits. Do I do a super move? Or do I get you a few more hits and get you more and stuff like that? And so there's a lot of great exchange that happens with that. Test your might going through the walls. It's just, you know, basic beat the crap out of the buttons and
sometimes you need to mash the buttons.
Exactly. And you know, and it's a breakup. Like, to me, it's like this interruption to this really great pacing that I feel we have.
It seems like it kind of expands on, I mean, like background transitions has been something that Mortal Kombat's done for a while, whether it's like uppercutting people through the ceiling. It just seems like it adds like a little bit of gameplay to that.
Yeah, and we've been doing the transitions. I mean, if you come back to like kind of like MK3, we had these transitions, but it was always a passive experience. It was always something that you see a great show and you're like, wow, that was cool, let's get back to fighting. Now it's more interactive and stuff, and that's to me is like keeping the player engaged more in what's going on.
Was it hard to develop a story mode that fit these characters together and in a meaningful way?
It was hard to explain the events that we wanted to have. Like, we wanted to have good guys fighting good guys. You know, why would Flash fight Batman? Why would Superman fight, you know, Raiden? You know, they're both good guys. And so we introduced this whole concept of the rage, which kind of like changes people's behavior, what they would normally do, and it's kind of infecting all the characters, and, you know, the more intellectual characters, Batmans and Liu Kangs, they're kind of figuring things out, and all the other ones are kind of affected by it. And so once we established that, a lot of the story became pretty easy to write.
Cool. Now you have 2 separate stories in the game. How will that work out? You'll be transferring from character to character?
Yeah, when you start the story mode, you can either play from the MK perspective or the DC perspective, and it's the same events but seen from the 2 different worlds. And so it's really cool because when you play the DC side, you'll see these events that you're like, you know, why did this guy suddenly materialize in front of me? And then you see him disappear on the MK side, and you go, oh, that's where he went. And then when this guy who disappeared, where did he go? You play the MK side, oh, he ended up here. And so it's a great, when you play the 2 sides, a lot of pieces come together, and a lot of pieces of the puzzle just kind of like answered. It's cool.
Cool. The character roster on the MK side is definitely kind of a classics,
greatest hits
lineup. I think, that's the term you've been using. Do you see yourself kind of sticking more to these guys in future games? Is there like a soft spot in the back of your head where, like, well, you know, we're going to bring Baraicho back at some point, and some of these characters from the last few games? Do you view them kind of like all on equal footing, or it's like, here's the classics and here's kind of the new school?
Yeah, you know, I think there are some of the new ones that for me I thought really worked out well. I really love the blind Kenji character, and then there's other ones that I, you know, if I never saw again, I would never have a problem, which I'm not going to name. Because then the guy who designed it is going to be pissed.
Wait.
And but in terms of like the MK 1, 2, and 3 characters, like, you know, I think you know, those are kind of like the greatest hits ones. You know, maybe we'll see like one of the, you know, Cyrax or Sector come back or something like that. And you know, Kung Lao. I mean, how can you not? I'm surprised we didn't have him in this game, to be honest.
Well, you know, downloadable content, right? You can add characters later.
We're talking. We're having debates already about who to download and stuff. And I'd love to put something online for like a voting thing. You know, that'd be cool. So it's cool to have that kind of problem, though, to have a lot of characters. Which one do you choose?
So now the game's just about done, or you're in submission. Like, what are you really proud of in this game? What's the one thing that if you were, you know, talking to someone who maybe hadn't played Mortal Kombat in a while, that you wanted to say, like, you know, here's why you should really play this game? Like what's the thing that's going to drag these people back in?
I think The basic pacing of the fighting to me is what I'm most proud of. You know, we've added layers for like the. I still feel like, you know, we've always made a conscious goal to be accessible as possible. We don't want to have a fighting system that just, you know, alienates 90% of the public, but, you know, 10% love it. And so I really feel like the moment-to-moment events of a fight and, you know, the kind of craziness that goes on is completely intact, you know, and that's what I always kind of define as what a Mortal Kombat fighting experience is. I'm really proud of the story mode, how it turned out. It's very cinematic, very, you know, transition in and out of the fights is really, really smooth. But the fact that the game, you know, the initial announcement, there was such a collective, what the, you know, reaction to it. And, you know, over time, it's really swayed to the other direction now. I'm really proud of that, too.
Cool. All right, Ed. Well, thanks a lot for your time. Thanks for coming by.
Appreciate you having me. All right.